While my father stood weeping alone at my mother's grave, I was clinking champagne glasses at my wife's birthday. I looked into his grieving eyes and whispered, "Mom isn't coming back, but Stella's day comes only once a year." In that moment, I chose selfish joy over sacred mourning. I wasn't a son, I was a coward hiding behind celebration. What followed crushed me with a truth: I can never escape some betrayals, carve scars so deep you spend the rest of your life begging for forgiveness you may never deserve. I know you're probably feeling disgusted with me right now, and you should be. But before I tell you about the consequences that followed, drop a comment telling me where you're listening from and hit that subscribe button. While my father stood alone at my mother's graveside, I was popping champagne bottles at my wife's birthday party. I looked him in the eye and said, "Mom's not coming back, but Stella's birthday only happens once a year. I am a monster disguised as a son." The punishment that followed was so perfectly calculated, so brutally, just that it destroyed everything I thought I knew about family loyalty and the true cost of taking love for granted. But let me start from the beginning, from that morning when I made the choice that would define the rest of my life. The phone rang at 8:30 a.m. while I was hanging streamers in our living room. Stella had been planning this party for months, and everything had to be perfect. The caterers were arriving in 2 hours, the band was setting up in the backyard, and I was running behind schedule. "Caleb, it's Dad." Cole's voice was hollow, strained in a way I'd never heard before. I wedged the phone between my shoulder and ear, continuing to tape decorations to the wall. "Hey, Dad, what's up? I'm kind of busy right now. Your mother's funeral is today, 11:30 at St. Mary's." I paused, streamer in hand. Of course I knew Mom had died 3 days ago. Of course I knew about the funeral, but Stella's party was tonight and we'd been planning this for months. The invitations were sent. The deposits paid, the whole thing organized around her work schedule. "Dad, I told you yesterday, Stella's birthday party is tonight. We've got 60 people coming, the band's already here setting up, and the caterers are arriving soon." The silence on the other end stretched uncomfortably long. "Caleb, this is your mother's funeral. She raised you for 35 years. I felt a flash of irritation. Why was he making this so difficult? "Look, I appreciate everything Mom did for me, I really do. But she's gone, Dad. She's not coming back. Stella's birthday only happens once a year, and I can't just abandon my wife on her special day. You understand, right? I know what you're thinking right now. What kind of monster chooses a party over his mother's funeral? At the time, I thought I was being practical, being a good husband, prioritizing my marriage and my future. I thought I was making the mature choice." The dial tone buzzed in my ear. Dad had hung up on me. I stared at the phone for a moment, then shrugged, and went back to hanging decorations. Stella appeared in the doorway, radiant in her silk robe, her hair already done for the party. "Who was that, baby?" "Just Dad being dramatic about Mom's funeral. He'll get over it." She smiled and kissed my cheek. "You made the right choice, Caleb. I'm so proud of you for putting our marriage first. That's what real love looks like." I pulled her close, breathing in her expensive perfume. This was my life now. Beautiful wife, successful career at Dad's construction company, this gorgeous house that Dad had helped us buy. Mom was gone, but life had to go on. Stella needed me today. The caterers arrived right on schedule, filling our kitchen with the aroma of prime rib and lobster tail. The bartender started setting up the premium bar in the corner. Stella had spared no expense for this party, and why shouldn't she? We could afford it. Dad paid me well at Ross Construction, and there was always more money available when we needed it. By noon, I'd completely forgotten about the funeral. I was too busy greeting early guests, making sure the music was perfect, ensuring Stella felt like the queen she deserved to be. She looked stunning in her new designer dress, the one that cost more than most people made in a month. I had no idea that at that exact moment, my father was standing beside my mother's casket, surrounded by her friends and neighbors, explaining to everyone who asked that his son had important commitments and couldn't make it. I had no idea this would be the last normal day of my life. By 7 p.m., our backyard was transformed into an elegant paradise. String lights twinkled overhead, the live band played Stella's favorites, and 60 of Springfield's elite mingled on our manicured lawn, champagne glasses catching the sunset. Stella glowed in her red designer dress, moving through the crowd like royalty. The mayor was there, city council members, country club friends, everyone who mattered in our social circle. I stood behind the bar playing perfect host, watching my wife bask in the attention she craved. "Caleb, this is magnificent," gushed Mrs. Patterson. "Stella's so lucky to have a husband who spares no expense." I smiled, straightening my silk tie. "Nothing's too good for my wife." The prime rib was flawless champagne, flowed freely, and the three-tier cake was a masterpiece. This party cost more than most annual salaries, but Stella deserved perfection. She'd planned every detail for months. Around 8:30, a strange thought flickered through my mind. Dad's funeral would be over now. He'd be home alone in that empty house, surrounded by sympathy cards and neighbor casseroles. I cranked up the music and pushed the thought away. Stella pulled me onto the dance floor for her favorite song. The crowd cheered as we swayed under the stars. "This is the best birthday ever, baby," she whispered. "Thank you for choosing me." "Always," I replied, spinning her gracefully. But around 10 p.m., cutting the birthday cake, something felt wrong. A heaviness in my chest I couldn't shake. Stella opened gifts surrounded by admiring friends, but I kept checking my phone. No calls from Dad, no messages, nothing. "Caleb helped me with this gorgeous necklace," Stella called, holding up diamonds from her friend Sarah. I joined the group smiling and playing my part, but uneasiness lingered. Mom would have loved this party. She always said Stella threw Springfield's most elegant gatherings. She would have been here in her best dress helping in the kitchen, making everyone feel welcome. The thought made me uncomfortable, so I grabbed more champagne and focused on being the attentive husband. By midnight, the last guest departed full of praise for the incredible evening. Stella glowed with exhaustion and happiness, arms full of expensive gifts and flowers. We waved goodbye from our doorway, night air cool against our flushed faces. "That was perfect, Caleb. Absolutely perfect." She leaned against me, still wearing her cake ceremony tiara. I kissed her head, breathing in lingering perfume mixed with champagne and celebration. "Happy birthday, beautiful." Cleaning up party remnants, I caught myself checking my phone again. Still nothing from Dad. But that was probably best. He'd understand eventually that I'd made the right choice. Marriage came first. Stella came first. That's what good husbands did. The strange uneasiness in my chest whispered otherwise, but I ignored it completely. 3 days passed in blissful normalcy. Stella posted party photos on social media, basking in compliments from friends. I returned to work at Ross Construction, expecting everything to continue as usual. Dad hadn't called since that awkward conversation about the funeral, but I figured he needed time to process his grief. Then the credit card bills arrived. Stella's birthday extravaganza had cost exactly $15,000. The band catering flowers, champagne, her diamond bracelet. It all added up faster than I'd anticipated. Our credit cards were maxed out, and the payment was due immediately. No problem. Dad had always helped with unexpected expenses. Family emergencies, home repairs, Stella's shopping sprees. He'd never said no before. I'd just explained the situation, and he'd wire the money like always. I called him Tuesday morning from my office, confident and casual. "Dad, hey, it's Caleb. Hope you're doing okay." His voice was flat emotionless. "What do you need?" The directness caught me off guard. Usually we'd chat about work, the weather, family stuff. Well, Stella's party ended up costing more than expected. We're looking at about $15,000 in immediate bills. Silence stretched uncomfortably long. "So, can you just wire it to my account? Today Stella's really stressed about the bills." "No." The word hit like a physical blow. In 35 years, my father had never said no to a financial request. Never. Not once. "What do you mean no? Is there a problem with the bank?" "I mean no, Caleb. I won't be giving you any more money." My stomach dropped. "Dad? What's going on? This isn't like you. We're family. We help each other out." "Family." He repeated the word like it tasted bitter. "You're 35 years old, Caleb." Stella appeared in my office doorway, designer purse in hand. She saw my expression and mouthed, "What's wrong?" "Dad, come on. This is ridiculous. Just help us out like always." "No." The line went dead. He'd hung up on me again. I stared at my phone, completely bewildered. Stella rushed over her face, pale with concern. "What happened? Did something go wrong with the transfer?" He said no. Dad actually said no. Stella's mouth fell open. "That's impossible. He's never said no before. Call him back." I tried 3 more times. Each call went straight to voicemail. By the 4th attempt, Stella was pacing my office like a caged animal. "This is insane, Caleb. We have $15,000 in bills due this week. What are we supposed to do?" I loosened my tie, feeling sweat beading on my forehead. "I don't know. Maybe he's just upset about Mom. He'll come around." "When the bills are due now." Stella's voice rose to near hysteria. "Use your authority as his son. Make them transfer the money." "I can't do that, Stella. I don't have access to his accounts." For the first time in our marriage, Stella looked at me like I was a stranger, like I'd failed her in some fundamental way. Fix this, Caleb. Whatever's wrong with your father, fix it. We have a lifestyle to maintain. That night I lay awake staring at the ceiling while Stella slept fitfully beside me. Something had fundamentally changed in my father's voice. The warmth, the automatic willingness to help, the unconditional support, it was all gone. The foundation of my entire adult life was cracking beneath me. A week of sleepless nights had passed. The $15,000 bills remained unpaid, collection agencies were calling daily, and Stella's mood had turned ice cold. She barely spoke to me, spending her days at the spa or shopping with friends, charging everything to cards that were already maxed out. I walked into Ross Construction that Monday morning, like I had for the past 8 years, coffee in hand, ready to review the Henderson project blueprints. The receptionist, Maria, gave me an odd look but said nothing. Several workers stopped their conversations when I passed, their expressions unreadable. Something felt wrong, but I pushed the feeling aside and headed to my corner office. Caleb, please come to the conference room immediately. Dad's voice crackled through the intercom, formal and businesslike. I straightened my tie and walked down the familiar hallway, past family photos and company achievement awards. The conference room door was open, and I could see Dad sitting at the head of the mahogany table with Sarah Mitchell, our HR director. Legal documents were spread across the polished surface. My stomach clenched. What's this about, Dad? If it's about the money thing, we can work something out. He didn't look up from the papers. Sit down, Caleb. Sarah cleared her throat nervously. Caleb, your employment with Ross Construction is terminated effective immediately. The words hit like a freight train. I actually laughed out loud. Very funny, Dad. What's this really about? He slid a document across the table. Please review this termination agreement and sign where indicated. My hands trembled as I picked up the papers. Legal language swam before my eyes. Position eliminated due to restructuring, performance issues, effective immediately. You can't be serious. This is our family business. I've worked here for 8 years. This is a business decision, not a personal one. Dad's voice remained steady, professional, cold. Business decision. My voice cracked. I'm your son. Security will escort you to collect your personal items. The conference room door opened, and Mike Thompson from building security stepped inside. I'd known Mike for years. We'd shared beers at company barbecues, talked about our wives, laughed at the same jokes. Now he wouldn't meet my eyes. This is about the funeral, isn't it? Desperation crept into my voice. Look, I'm sorry about missing Mom's service. I made a mistake. We can work this out. Dad finally looked directly at me. His eyes were empty, like looking at a stranger. Sign the papers, Caleb. The walk to my office felt like a death march. Every employee I passed stared openly now. Whispers followed in my wake. Mike stayed close behind me as I emptied my desk drawers into a cardboard box. Family photos, coffee mug, the expensive pen set Stella had given me for Christmas. 8 years of my professional life reduced to a single box of trinkets. As we headed toward the exit, the elevator doors opened and Stella stepped out, designer heels clicking against marble floors. She'd obviously come straight from the salon, her hair perfectly styled, makeup flawless. Caleb, what's going on? Why is security with you? The lobby fell silent. Every eye in the building focused on us. I've been fired, Stella. Dad fired me. Her face went white, then flushed red with rage. Cole, she screamed across the lobby. Cole Ross, you get down here right now. Ma'am, please keep your voice down, Mike said gently. Don't you dare tell me to keep my voice down. This is theft. This is family abuse. More employees gathered, drawn by the commotion. Stella's voice echoed off the marble walls as she launched into a tirade about wrongful termination, family loyalty, and legal action. Her designer purse flew open as she gestured, wildly spilling lipstick and credit cards across the floor. Ma'am, I need you to leave the building. Mike said, his patience wearing thin. I'm not going anywhere until that old man comes down here and explains himself. Security backup arrived. 2 more guards flanked Stella as her screaming intensified. The entire first floor had stopped working to watch the spectacle. This was my life imploding in real time in front of everyone I'd worked with for nearly a decade. The humiliation was complete. 2 weeks of unemployment had stripped away my last illusions. Stella spent her days at the country club, charging meals and spa treatments to our maxed-out cards, while I sat in our home office staring at mounting bills and rejection letters from potential employers. Word traveled fast in Springfield's business community. No one wanted to hire the son who'd abandoned his mother's funeral. That's when I decided to calculate exactly how much money Dad had given us over the years. Maybe if I could show him the total, prove it wasn't that significant in the grand scheme of things, he'd reconsider his harsh stance. I pulled out bank statements, loan documents, and credit card records dating back 15 years. What started as a simple addition became an archaeological dig through my financial dependence. College tuition, $52,000 per year for 4 years. Graduate school, I'd dropped out of $48,000. The European finding myself trip, $35,000. Wedding expenses, $75,000. House down payment, $350,000. Car purchases, emergency loans. Stella's shopping sprees, failed business ventures. The calculator kept climbing. My hands trembled as I added each transaction. $763,000. I stared at the number, certain I'd made a mistake. I recalculated 3 times. The total remained the same, $763,000 over 15 years. Nearly $750,000 of my parents' money handed over with love and hope, while I treated it like an endless ATM. In Mom's nightstand, I found her hidden journal. The leather cover was worn smooth from years of her gentle touch. Inside, her careful handwriting documented every sacrifice she and Dad had made for my comfort. Postponed anniversary dinner. Caleb needed $5,000 for car repairs. Bought generic groceries this month. Sent Caleb money for Stella's birthday surprise. Canceled my doctor appointment. Caleb's wedding costs higher than expected. Each entry was a dagger to my heart. The final entry, dated just weeks before her death, destroyed me completely. We gave Caleb everything we had. Cole worries we've created a monster, but I still believe in our boy. I pray he remembers us kindly when we're gone. Maybe some of you have been in my shoes, taking family for granted until it's too late. But I doubt any of you sank as low as I did. I doubt any of you were as blind to the people who loved you most. I sat on their bedroom floor, surrounded by evidence of their unconditional love and my unconscious cruelty, and finally understood what I'd become. Not their son, their parasite. Not Stella's husband, her enabler in bleeding my parents dry. Mom had died knowing what I was. She'd seen through my selfish facade and loved me anyway, right until her last breath. And I'd repaid that love by choosing champagne and birthday cake over her funeral. The man who'd raised me, who'd built a successful business from nothing, who'd given me every advantage in life, had finally said enough. Not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. He was trying to save whatever was left of the son he'd once been proud of. I called Dad's number with shaking fingers, but it went straight to voicemail. His voice, once warm and welcoming, now delivered a cold, professional message. For the first time in my 35 years, I truly understood the weight of consequences. A month after my termination, the true scope of my father's influence in Springfield became devastatingly clear. What I'd initially dismissed as temporary awkwardness had evolved into systematic social exile. It started at Morrison's Deli, where Stella and I had eaten lunch every Friday for 3 years. The hostess, usually bubbly and welcoming, barely made eye contact as she seated us at a corner table near the kitchen. "Service seems slow today," Stella commented, checking her diamond watch after 20 minutes without a server. When someone finally approached, it was the manager, not our usual waitress. "I'm sorry, but we're experiencing some staffing issues today. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable dining elsewhere." The message was clear: we weren't welcome. Stella's yoga instructor at the exclusive Harmony studio was more direct. "We've decided to focus on members who share our values regarding family commitment," she said, canceling Stella's membership on the spot. At Springfield Country Club, where we'd been members for 5 years, the golf pros suddenly couldn't find our reservation. The tennis courts were perpetually booked. Even the bar staff seemed to forget our usual orders. "This is ridiculous," Stella fumed after being snubbed by her bridge club friends. "What's wrong with everyone in this town?" I knew exactly what was wrong. Springfield was a small community where everyone knew everyone else's business. The story of my choice had spread like wildfire through church congregations, business networks, and social circles. At Bergdorf's boutique, where Stella had spent thousands over the years, the sales associates suddenly became cold and unhelpful. Her credit application for a store card was mysteriously delayed, then denied. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Ross," the manager said with obvious satisfaction. "We prefer customers who understand the value of family." Even our neighbors began treating us differently. The Hendersons, who'd borrowed our lawnmower countless times, stopped acknowledging us entirely. Mrs. Patterson from the Historical Society crossed the street to avoid speaking to Stella. The final blow came at St. Mary's Church, where Mom's funeral had been held. Father Mackenzie, who'd known our family for decades, delivered a sermon about honoring our parents that felt like a personal attack. Parishioners whispered and stared as we tried to find seats. After the service, elderly Mrs. Kowalski approached us in the parking lot. I expected sympathy, perhaps condolences about Mom. Instead, she looked me straight in the eye and said, "Your mother was a St. Caleb Ross. She deserved better than you." Stella's humiliation reached its breaking point at the grocery store when the checkout clerk, a girl who couldn't have been more than 19, refused to accept our credit card. "Its system's down," she said with a smirk that suggested otherwise. "This is harassment," Stella screamed, drawing stares from other shoppers. "We're being discriminated against." But it wasn't discrimination. It was justice. Springfield's tight-knit community had rendered their verdict on a man who'd chosen a birthday party over his mother's funeral, and they'd found me guilty as charged. Every closed door, every cold shoulder, every whispered conversation that stopped when we approached was a reminder of my failure as a son. The social fabric of our lives was unraveling thread by thread. That evening, sitting in our increasingly empty house, Stella finally asked the question I'd been dreading. "Caleb, what exactly did you say to your father the morning of your mother's funeral?" I couldn't bring myself to repeat those words, but my silence told her everything she needed to know. Something darker was approaching, and we both sensed it. 3 months of unemployment and social exile had drained our savings completely. The $15,000 from Stella's party was just the beginning. Our lifestyle required a constant flow of money that had suddenly brutally stopped. I sat at our kitchen table, surrounded by a sea of red notices. Past due, final warning, account suspended. The words blurred together as I calculated our monthly expenses against my unemployment benefits. Our mortgage payment alone was $4,000. Add utilities, car payments, insurance, Stella's credit card minimums, and we needed over $8,000 monthly just to survive. My unemployment check covered barely a quarter of that. "Caleb, my card was declined at Nordstrom," Stella announced, bursting through the front door with empty shopping bags. The girl said something about the co-signer withdrawing support. What does that mean? My blood turned to ice. Dad had co-signed most of our credit accounts when we'd first gotten married, back when our credit was non-existent and our income modest. I'd never considered he could simply, withdraw. And I called the credit card company with trembling fingers. "Mr. Ross, your father removed his guarantee on all accounts effective last week. Your credit lines have been suspended pending full payment of outstanding balances." Outstanding balances of what amount? Yet $47,612 across 4 accounts. The phone slipped from my numb fingers. Stella was pacing the kitchen, her face flushed with panic and rage. At $47,000, Caleb. How are we supposed to pay $47,000? Before I could answer, the lights went out. The electric company had finally followed through on their threats. 3 months of unpaid bills, ignored notices, and empty promises had caught up with us. Our beautiful home, with its cathedral ceilings and designer fixtures, was suddenly dark and silent. "This can't be happening," Stella whispered, fumbling for her phone's flashlight. "We're not these people. We don't live like this." But we were these people now. We were the couple who'd built a lifestyle on borrowed money and family generosity, and both sources had evaporated overnight. The water company was next, then the gas. Within a week, our house was uninhabitable, a cold, dark shell of our former life. I tried desperately to find work, but every interview ended the same way. Springfield's business community had closed ranks against me. My reputation as the son who'd abandoned his mother's funeral preceded every job application. The foreclosure notice arrived on a Tuesday, delivered by a sheriff's deputy who'd once been Mom's student in Sunday school. He wouldn't meet my eyes as he handed me the legal documents. "You've got 60 days, he said quietly. "I'm sorry, Caleb. Your mom was a good woman." Stella read the notice with growing hysteria. "They can't take our house. Your father guaranteed the mortgage. Not anymore," I said, my voice hollow. "He's withdrawn all financial support." "And then make him change his mind. Go to him, beg him do whatever it takes." But I knew it was too late for begging. Dad had systematically dismantled every financial safety net we'd taken for granted. The man who'd built Ross Construction from nothing was methodically teaching his spoiled son what real consequences looked like. That night, we sat in our dark, cold house by candlelight, eating peanut butter sandwiches because it was all we could afford. Stella cried silently while I stared at the foreclosure papers, finally understanding that my father wasn't being cruel. He was being a parent. For the first time in my adult life, I was about to learn what it meant to stand on my own 2 feet. The education was going to be brutal. 6 months later, I stood across from our home watching strangers bid on my life. The county foreclosure auction was scheduled for 10 a.m., and real estate investors had gathered on the courthouse steps like vultures. Stella clutched my arm designer nails, digging into my jacket. "This isn't really happening, right? Someone will stop this." I'd already tried everything. Bankruptcy lawyers, loan modifications, desperate calls to relatives. Every door slammed shut. Dad's withdrawal of support had been thorough and irreversible. "Opening bid is $280,000, the auctioneer announced. A woman in a navy suit raised her paddle immediately. Next to her stood Cole Dad's attorney. My stomach dropped as understanding hit me. $300,000, he called a contractor. $310,000, the woman countered smoothly. "Over, Caleb, who is that woman? Why is your father's lawyer here?" Stella whispered. I couldn't answer. My throat had closed as I watched the systematic destruction of everything I'd thought was mine. $320,000 going, once going twice, sold to bidder number 7. The woman shook hands with the auctioneer. Cole Crawford approached with paperwork, and I glimpsed the bid sheet, Sarah Mitchell Holdings, LLC. Sarah Mitchell, Dad's HR director who'd terminated me. "He bought our house," Stella whispered, voice breaking. "Your father bought our house through his employee." The new owner walked past us without acknowledgement keys in hand, ready to inspect her purchase. "Excuse me," Stella called desperately. "That's our home. Our things are inside." Sarah paused, professionally sympathetic, but firm. "You have until Friday to remove personal belongings. After that, everything becomes property of the estate." 3 days to pack up 8 years of marriage dreams, the life we'd built on borrowed money. That night in our final evening home, Stella's facade cracked completely. She sat on our bedroom floor, surrounded by half-packed boxes, sobbing into her hands. "I can't live like this, Caleb. I can't be poor. I can't be the woman whose husband chose a party over his mother's funeral." "We'll figure something out," I said weakly. "No, we won't. Look at what we become." She gestured at the chaos. Expensive clothes stuffed in garbage bags, wedding china wrapped in newspaper, our lifestyle reduced to what fit in a rented truck. I married into a successful family, Caleb. I married the Ross name, Money Future. What am I supposed to do with this version of you? Her words cut deeper than physical wounds. For the first time, I saw myself through her eyes. Not the man she'd loved, but the failure who'd destroyed everything she'd married for. You might be asking yourself, does someone like me deserve forgiveness? At that moment, sitting in our empty house, I didn't think so. The moving truck would come tomorrow. After that, the Riverside Motel, until we figured out what came next. But I already sensed what came next would shatter what little remained of my world. The Riverside Motel became our new reality. $200 a week for a cramped room that smelled of cigarettes and broken dreams. Stella spent most days staring at her phone, scrolling through social media posts from friends still living the life we'd lost. "Look at this," she said bitterly, showing me photos from Sarah Patterson's yacht party. "Everyone's having such a wonderful time without us." I was filling out job applications at a card table we'd bought from Goodwill. The same hands that once signed construction contracts, now begging for minimum wage positions. Every application asked about previous employment, and every honest answer led to immediate rejection. "Maybe we should move away from Springfield," I suggested. "Start fresh somewhere else." Stella's laugh was cold and hollow. "With what money, Caleb? We can barely afford this dump." 3 weeks into our motel existence, Stella started taking long walks that lasted hours. She'd return with her makeup refreshed, her mood strangely improved, but she offered no explanations for her absence. "Where do you go?" I asked one evening. "Just walking, thinking, trying to figure out what's left of my life." The distance between us grew wider each day. We slept on opposite sides of the narrow bedbacks, turned avoiding conversation beyond basic necessities. The woman who'd once called me her soulmate now looked at me like I was a stranger who'd ruined everything she'd worked for. Then came the phone call that changed everything. I was in the motel shower when Stella's phone rang. Through the thin bathroom door, I heard her voice become animated happy in a way it hadn't been in months. I know. I should have called you sooner. Yes, I've been thinking about you too. Tonight I don't know if I can. Caleb's here." My blood turned to ice. I turned off the water and listened more carefully. "You're right. I deserve better than this. I deserved to be happy again. When I emerged from the bathroom, Stella was applying lipstick at the cracked mirror, dressed in her nicest remaining outfit. Going somewhere, I asked, though I already knew. She turned to face me, and for the first time in months I saw the old Stella. Confident, radiant, alive. But it wasn't for me. "Caleb, we need to talk." I sat heavily on the bed, water still dripping from my hair. "It's over, isn't it?" "I can't do this anymore. I can't be married to someone who threw away everything we had for a birthday party. I can't be the wife of the man who abandoned his mother's funeral. Stella, please, we can rebuild. I'll find work, we'll start over. With what, you're unemployable in this town. Your own father disowned you. We're living in a motel, Caleb. A motel." She sat beside me, but the distance between us felt infinite. "Marcus called me, my ex from college. He owns 3 restaurants, now has a beautiful house in Chicago. He wants me back." The name hit like a physical blow. Marcus Williams, the boyfriend she'd left for me when we'd first met. The successful businessman she'd always compared me to, unfavorably during our worst fights. "You're leaving me for him?" "I'm leaving you for me, for the life I was supposed to have before I got caught up in your family's drama." She stood and grabbed her purse, the same designer bag she'd carried to our wedding 8 years ago. "I'll be back tomorrow for my things. I'm sorry, Caleb. I really am. But I married into success, not failure. I can't follow you down this path anymore." The motel door closed behind her with a soft click that sounded like the end of the world. I sat alone in that shabby room, surrounded by the remnants of our life packed in cardboard boxes, and finally understood what complete isolation felt like. For the first time in my 35 years, I had absolutely no one left to disappoint. 10 months after Stella walked out, I stood behind the counter at Sam's gas station on Route 6, wearing a stained uniform with my name embroidered in fading letters. The pay was $9 an hour, barely enough to cover rent on the studio apartment above Martinez Laundromat. My hands, once soft from office work, were now permanently stained with motor oil and calloused from real labor. I pumped gas-cleaned windshields, stocked shelves, and swept floors. Honest work that my father would have respected. The apartment was a single room with a hot plate mini fridge and mattress on the floor. No designer furniture, no expensive art, just the basics needed to survive. But something strange had happened in those months of genuine hardship. For the first time in my adult life, I was paying my own bills with money earned through my own sweat. Mrs. Martinez, who ran the laundromat downstairs, had become an unlikely friend. She'd immigrated from Mexico, with nothing built a successful business through decades of 18-hour days and never complained. "You good boy now," she told me one evening. "Before you spoiled, now you learning?" I'd started visiting Mom's grave every Sunday, bringing daisies I could barely afford. Sitting beside her headstone, I told her about my new life. The humility, the hard work, the slow process of becoming someone she might have been proud of. "I'm sorry, Mom," I whispered during one visit. "I'm trying to be better." That Tuesday started normally. I was restocking the cooler when the bell chimed. I looked up to see a familiar figure in an expensive suit, graying hair perfectly styled, surveying the modest gas station. "Dad." He approached slowly, expression unreadable. We hadn't spoken in nearly a year, not since that devastating phone call about $15,000. "Fill it up regular unleaded," he said, quietly placing his keys on the counter. My hands trembled. "Yes, sir." Outside, pumping gas into his pristine truck, I caught him watching me through the window. When I returned with his receipt, he studied my face like seeing me for the first time in years. "You look different," he said. "I feel different." The apartment above the laundromat, oisitsdaist wapoof, one bar. I nodded. Springfield was a small town. "Mrs. Martinez says you're a good tenant. Quiet, respectful, pays rent on time. She's been kind to me." Dad pocketed his receipt, but didn't move toward the door. "Your mother's birthday is next week." The words hit like a gentle punch. I'd been dreading the anniversary. "I know, I've been visiting her grave." "I know, I've seen the daisies." We stood in awkward silence, two men who'd once been father and son, now strangers, learning each other again. "Caleb," he said finally, "what I did, it wasn't cruelty. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. I know, Dad, you were trying to save me from myself. Did it work?" I looked around the modest gas station, thought about my tiny apartment, my calloused hands, my empty bank account. Then I considered the peace I'd found in earning my own way, the dignity in honest work, the slow reconstruction of my character. I think maybe it did. 1 year later, I knelt beside Mom's grave on her birthday, arranging fresh daisies from my small garden behind Mrs. Martinez's laundromat. I'd learned to grow something beautiful from nothing. "Happy birthday, Mom," I whispered. Footsteps approached. Dad walked slowly carrying roses. We'd been meeting here occasionally over recent months, sharing quiet moments without forced conversation. "She would have loved seeing you like this," he said, settling on the bench he'd installed. I looked at my work clothes, calloused hands, the simple life built from ashes. "Like what?" "Humble, grateful, real." We sat in comfortable silence, learning to be father and son again. "I've been thinking about offering you a job," Dad said suddenly. My heart leaped, then crashed. "Dad, I can't go back to being your spoiled son." "Not at Ross Construction, at the community center, teaching basic construction skills to kids from broken homes. The pay isn't much, but it's honest work that matters." "You'd trust me with that." "Caleb, you've worked at Sam's over a year. Never missed a day, never asked for money. Mrs. Martinez says you help elderly customers without being asked. You visit your mother weekly." His voice grew thick. "The boy who chose a party over his mother's funeral is gone. I can see that now. Perhaps you're asking the same question. I ask myself every day, is redemption possible for someone like me? Sitting beside my mother's grave, seeing my father's tentative smile, I finally believed it might be. There's something else. I've been working with Cole on a new will. I want to rebuild our relationship properly. Dad, I don't want your money. I've learned to live without it. I know. That's exactly why I trust you with it now. The irony struck me. Only after losing everything learning to survive on merit alone was I worthy of what I'd once taken for granted. I met someone, Linda, a nurse at the community clinic. She knows my whole story and somehow still sees something worth loving. Dad's first genuine smile in 2 years appeared. "Your mother always said you'd find your way. She never stopped believing even when I did. I want to earn my way back into your life, Dad. No shortcuts, just honest work and time. That's all I've ever wanted from you, son." The word son hit like an unexpected gift. We sat as afternoon shadows lengthened two men who'd lost each other and found their way back through pain, consequence, and the slow work of forgiveness. I thought about Stella, probably happy in Chicago with Marcus. I felt no bitterness, only gratitude that her leaving forced me to discover who I really was beneath the entitlement. Some lessons can only be learned the hard way. Some growth only comes through loss. Some love requires losing everything else first. Walking away from the cemetery together, I knew the road ahead remained long. Trust rebuilds slowly. But for the first time since choosing champagne over caskets, I felt genuine hope. The man who abandoned his mother's funeral was gone. In his place stood someone Mom might actually have been proud of. Looking back now, I finally understand that a story of betrayal like mine was never about one disastrous decision on a single day. It was the culmination of years of blindness, arrogance, and the quiet erosion of gratitude. I didn't just fail my father at my mother's funeral, I had been failing them in countless small ways long before. Each time I asked for help without giving anything back, each time I treated their sacrifices as my entitlement rather than their gift, I was digging the pit that I would one day fall into. For most of my life, I treated love as if it were an endless safety net. I believed that family, especially parents, existed to catch me no matter how recklessly I jumped. I confused their generosity with obligation, and I mistook their patience for weakness. But love, especially a parent's love, was never designed to be a shield against every mistake or a bottomless well of rescue. Love is meant to protect, but also to correct. It is meant to nurture, but also to teach. True love sometimes requires distant silence and even painful boundaries. This journey revealed something I had never wanted to face. Consequences are not cruelty. They are not punishment for punishment's sake. They are lessons written in the ink of pain, delivered by the very hands that once carried us as children. Every sleepless night, every tear shed in regret, every humiliation I endured, became God's curriculum for a stubborn son who refused to learn any other way. Pain has a way of stripping away illusions until only truth remains, and the truth was simple. I had taken the people who loved me most and treated them as tools to serve my comfort. To anyone hearing this, don't repeat my mistake. Don't assume family love is an unlimited resource that will cover over any amount of selfishness. Boundaries in love are not rejection. They are a sign of respect both for the giver and for the one receiving. When I chose a birthday celebration over my mother's funeral, I believed love would absorb even that cruelty. But God has a way of humbling us when pride blinds our hearts. Sometimes His mercy comes not through another chance, but through the hard no of those who love us enough to stop saving us. And to parents listening, please hear this part. Love is not indulgence. Protecting your children from every hardship does not build them into stronger people. It weakens them. My parents in their goodness too often rescued me from the consequences of my own choices. Their love was sincere, but it unintentionally left me unprepared for reality. It was only when my father finally said enough that I began to grow. His refusal to keep enabling me was not rejection, it was the deepest form of love, one that forced me to face myself. Stories like mine are not rare. All around us there are adult children draining their parents financially and emotionally, leaving behind only disappointment. The cycle can only be broken by teaching responsibility and gratitude early, by showing that love is paired with accountability. Through the ashes of my downfall, I discovered something: unexpected grace. God's grace revealed itself in honest work in the dignity of paying my own way in the quiet act of visiting my mother's grave with flowers I could finally afford myself. My father's discipline became the instrument that rescued me from my own destruction. The road to redemption is long, but it is real. If you are willing to walk it with humility, with faith, and with perseverance, then even the worst betrayals can be transformed into the foundation of a new life. If my story touched you, please share your reflections in the comments. Have you lived through family betrayal? Have you had to set boundaries with someone you love? Your words may give someone else the courage they desperately need. And don't forget to subscribe so we can continue telling stories that remind us what matters most: love that is honest, disciplined, and strong enough to heal even the deepest wounds.